Hey there, today we're going to be decorating 6 different ornament cookies, perfect for advent calendars or just because. I'm Leslie from Leslie's Cookies and Treats, and before we get started, do you want to create the cutest Christmas cookies that Santa's ever seen, or make a beautiful Christmas village cookie set that you can serve at your holiday dinner? Well, join my online cookie decorating classes and following step-by-step video tutorials. You'll find out everything you need to know to make cute cookies just like these and have an unforgettable Christmas dessert that's perfect for sharing or for gifting. Get more details in the description. But for now, let's make these ornament cookies, so grab your supplies and decorate along with me. The supply list and everything you need to make these is listed in the description. So grabbing your first ornament cookie, take your royal icing in about a 15-second consistency and slowly touch down and lift up and go around the cookie with your icing, watching your line of icing where it's falling rather than your piping bag. And once you get done outlining it, go ahead and flood it in with your icing, giving a generous amount, going close to the edge but not quite all over the way. And then you'll use your scribe or your toothpick to get the icing out to the edge, or like I am doing here, you can use your piping bag, just don't squeeze out any more icing. And then if you want, you can stick your scribe or toothpick right into the cookie and give it a little shake, and then use your scribe to settle down any remaining peaks of icing. Now for this first ornament, we're going to be using a wet on wet effect, and you're going to take your white royal icing and put it down in your green icing and make dots. And you're going to just make dots over the entire cookie. The white should settle down and blend right into that green icing for a solid surface wet on wet effect. Then set your cookie aside to dry until the icing crusts over, and then you can come back in and make the topper of your ornament. I'm using a stiffer icing here to outline it, and then flooding it back in with my 15-second royal icing, using my scribe to shape it and smooth it out. And then this ornament is done. I think it would be super cute if you piped a bow on top. What do you think? So go ahead and grab your next ornament cookie, and for this one we're going to outline and flood it in with our red royal icing, also in about a 15-second consistency. So doing the same process you did before, just outline your cookie, flood it in, and then you can use your piping bag or a scribe to get the icing out to the edge. But if you use your piping bag to move the icing around, don't squeeze out any more icing. And use your scribe to settle it down and pop any air bubbles. And then we're going to do another wet on wet effect for this one. Taking your green icing, just go ahead and make some lines going across your cookie. And you're going to want to squeeze out a little bit of icing, touch down, lift up, and then with even pressure, pull across the cookie. And here my line kind of broke, so I'm just going to go back in and fill that in. And then I'm going to do the same thing with a white line of icing. And then we're going to do another wet on wet effect with this one. So taking your scribe or your toothpick, draw lines up and down right through all of that icing, and then use an up and down tapping motion to settle down any peaks or bumps in your red icing when you're finished. Now I like to use a 15-second consistency for all of my icing, but if you're new to cookie decorating, you might have trouble with your royal icing crusting over before you're ready to draw the lines through your wet on wet and create this adorable effect. So if that's the case, just make sure that your flood consistency is all the same consistency, probably best between a 10 to 12-second consistency. And then I'm going to go ahead and add dots at the end of all of these peaks. Taking my white icing, I'm just going to put it down right into the icing and make a little tiny dot. And then I let my cookie dry until the icing crusted over, and I'm coming back in with a stiffer consistency, detailed consistency icing, and outlining the topper to my ornament, and then flooding it in with my flood consistency 15-second icing. And then this cookie is also done. So put this cookie aside and grab your next ornament cookie. So for this one, I'm going to take my blue icing and I'm going to do a wavy pattern at the top and then outline and flood in the bottom 2/3 of the cookie with the blue icing. So let's do that one more time. You're going to want to touch down with your blue icing, lift up your piping bag, and then drag a zigzag pattern across the top of your icing. It really doesn't matter how perfect your zigzags are. And then just touch down again and go around the edge of the cookie, paying attention to where your icing is falling rather than your piping bag, and then touch down at the end. And then go ahead and flood that in with the blue icing, and then we'll use our scribe to settle it down and get it out to those peaks up at the top. And my blue icing is a little stiffer than a 15-second consistency, so it did take me a minute to settle this down, but it can be done if you just jiggle your icing. And then immediately we're going to grab our white icing and flood in the rest of this ornament. This is again a wet on wet effect, and then just use your scribe to settle your white icing down and smooth it out. And then set your cookie aside to dry until the blue icing crusts over, and then I came back in and just made some little dots on my blue icing. These dots will be raised above because we let the cookie dry first. And then you can go back to the top and outline and flood in your topper with the stiffer royal icing and then flood it in with the 15-second white icing. And then this cookie is done. Go ahead and set it aside to dry. I think this cookie would also look cute with a bow at the top or maybe some holly leaves. So put this cookie aside and grab your next cookie. So for this cookie, you want to outline it and flood it in with a yellow royal icing and then set it aside to dry until the icing at least crusts over, but I let mine dry completely. And now that your cookie is dry, I'm just going to write ho 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 on my cookie. I could use a projector and really pay attention to the lettering that I'm doing. But I'm just going to eyeball it here and add it in freehand. You can use a projector or the tissue paper method if you want to use some fancy lettering or have it placed perfectly. I'm using a detailed consistency icing here, and I'm just going to touch down with my icing, lift up my piping bag, and draw a line where I want it, and then touch down at the end. Same thing with the circle, touch down, lift up my piping bag, and then drop down my circle. Now, it might be easier if you hold your piping bag closer to the tip with your hand more like holding a pencil rather than up at the top. And sometimes I also like to practice a few times on a piece of parchment paper or a paper towel before I start making the letters on my cookie. And once you finish with your ho ho ho, just go ahead and fill in your topper on your ornament just like we did before, and then I'm adding a little glitter spray to this one. And you can find a link to all the products in the description. This cookie's done, set it aside, and grab your next one. We're going to be doing another wet on wet effect with this one, so go ahead and grab your icing, outline and flood it in, and smooth it out like we've done before. So for this one, we're going to be making a snowflake, so you just want to go ahead and make some big dots going around in a circle in the center of your ornament cookie. So stick your white icing right into the red icing and squeeze a dot and then pull away. And then put a red dot right in the center of all of those white dots. So just touch your red icing right down in the center and squeeze a little dot, stop squeezing and pull away. And now we want to make little white lines in between each one of those dots, so just make some little white lines. So touch down with your piping bag, slightly lift up, and then touch down again almost immediately. Touch down, lift up, stop squeezing, touch down, and do that all the way around the cookie. And once you finish making all of your lines, we're going to go ahead and take our scribe, our toothpick, and draw a line from the outside of the ornament towards the center through all of those lines. Wipe off your scribe after each one before continuing on with the next one. Then we're going to go to the center of those little dots that we made and put your scribe right in the middle of the red, and you're going to draw the line out one way, wipe off your scribe, and then draw the line towards the center. Draw it towards the outside, wipe off your scribe, and then draw the line towards the center. So it's like you're making little pointed ovals all the way around the cookie. And then grab your white icing and make a dot in the center, and this cookie is done. Set it aside to dry, and then go back in and do your ornament topper. And my line of icing broke as I was trying to outline it, and I'm just going to use my scribe to kind of move it back into place, and then I'll finish outlining this topper. And I'll flood it in with my flood royal icing. And then this cookie is done. I'll leave a link in the description to the person who I first saw making all of these cool wet on wet snowflakes so you can check out more designs. Grab your next ornament cookie and flood that cookie in and let it dry completely. And then we'll go ahead and we'll pipe a snowflake on top. So using your detailed consistency white royal icing, you're going to want to touch down, lift up, and drag a line across the cookie, applying even pressure. Stop squeezing and drop your line down. And you're just going to do that all the way around the cookie in a star pattern. So touch down, lift up your piping bag, lift up, stop squeezing, and then touch down again at the other side. And it's okay if you don't go all the way into the center because we're going to be putting some other decorations in the center. And then just pipe a little ball at the end of each one of those lines. And then we want to place a little V at the end of each one of those lines. So just touch down, draw a V, touch down, slightly lift up your piping bag, touch down at the line, and then change directions, and then touch down when you're done. Touch down, draw a V, touch down. Using even pressure on your piping bag as you go around and do that at the end of all of these lines. And if your icing breaks like mine just did, just fill it in and then use your scribe or toothpick to smooth it out. And once you finish with all of your little bees, go back to the center and make little loops in the center of each one of these little lines. So touch down and then bring your icing around in a loop and then touch down again at the point. You're going to get a much prettier loop if you can lift your piping bag slightly up away from your cookie as you bring it around. Just lift up, watch your line of icing as it's falling, and then drop it down. And again, it might be helpful to practice this on a piece of parchment paper or on a paper towel before you start doing it on your cookie. And once you finish piping all of your loops, use your scribe or your toothpick to settle down the icing in the middle so that it's not in a big peak. And then go ahead and outline and flood in your ornament topper just like we've done on all of the other cookies, and then this cookie is done. And we are done with all 6 of our ornaments. I hope you enjoyed this video tutorial. I'll have a link in the description for all of the supplies that you need, and you can decorate along with me. And if you enjoy cookie decorating and you want to take your cookie decorating a little bit further, check out the classes and be sure to subscribe and like for more tutorials every day.